David Taipari's online, but he was also a sponsor, and it was working along the lines of what we had in mind under the Auckland Council's, the Royal Commission submission on Auckland Council was that we work in partnership, and we remain open to work together constructively in partnership. Partnership is not sending an unexpected letter out telling one of the parties to take steps to avoid that partnership. And if we don't show some firm response, then we are just capitulating.
Oh, I agree with that. I guess I'm sorry, I'm trying to ask these as questions because I don't, I'm sure we'll debate in due course, but I'm trying to ask questions to understand where you're coming from, Mr. Mayor, and what you're trying to achieve with the resolution so that I can make a decision about where I'll vote. So when we look at E, have we had any advice on what the implications of those three directions would be? I'm particularly concerned about the suspension of participation in the Memorandum of Understanding, particularly given that that has some really big implications for Kāinga order redevelopments in my area that are already well underway and which are in the Auckland large-scale projects, and what would happen to that work. Have we considered that?
We've considered that. It's been worded so that it doesn't impact upon Memorandum of Understandings of items that might be underway elsewhere or outside that area.
This is inside the area.
Well, there might be one that's left in that one there, but with regard to the Memorandum of Understanding, it was that we would contribute to, along with them, but it was also that they were forgiven a certain amount of the full costs of development, in the same way that we're requiring people in Drury to pay up for 30 years of development. And I don't think it's going to stop it. I think this is showing that we're serious to ask the Minister to reconsider what is a letter, a get stuffed letter, I'm taking over Auckland. And I don't think it's acceptable. So that's what we're after doing.
All right, I'll leave my questions there, but I'll reserve my right to speak when we get to the debate. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Kia ora, Councillor. Councillor Darby.
Thanks, Mayor, for raising this. Megan, we have a memorandum of understanding on urban development with, I think it's 3 ministers. We discussed the wording of that memorandum of understanding when the National Policy Statement urban development was dropped on us without notice. Can you just tell this committee what the memorandum of understanding, from, if you have recall, and I'm sorry I didn't give you a heads up on this question, do you have recall of the wording of that memorandum in terms of early notice, heads up, no surprises on matters like this? It was a signed document.
Yeah, through the chair. Certainly the whole intention of the memorandum of understanding was based on a partnership to the mayor's commentary that he's given. I can't recall the actual words, but obviously if one was to act in partnership, you would expect, conversation to happen, heads ups, whatever that might look like. But I can't actually recall the wording in relation to, say, no surprises, for example.
Look, I think that's probably enough. There is a document, like a signed agreement, a memorandum of understanding, that there are no surprises, and this was a surprise. So let's remember that part. Megan, can you just another question? What would the difference be between, what would the outcome be if there's a request for a withdrawal in the Mayor's recommendation as opposed to a pause? I'm probably interested in asking for a pause. If you withdrew it, does that mean the machinery has to totally reset as opposed to a pause which just holds it until such time we've had a discussion? I'm trying to get a sense of the difference there.
Sorry, councillor Darby, which, the withdrawal in relation to which,
The mayor
recommendation?
has
Sorry.
suggested that, and now I'm finding it too. And it's in the recommendations there that
The MOU?
the request of Kāinga Ora to process the assessment be withdrawn versus pausing it. That I'm trying to get an understanding of what that would look like in the machinery of this whole process.
Right, so we've got the withdrawal of a request that the direction to KO be by the ministers be withdrawn. That's the withdrawal bit, and then the
Yep, and then what I'm
suspension-
suggesting is,
Yep.
what if
Instead of
we
the word
said,
withdraw.
instead of withdraw,
Yep.
what if we said to pause it? I'm trying to understand the
Sure.
difference between those.
Okay, I think,
I think if I maybe could intervene a little bit, the issue here may be that that's for the mayor.
No, please go back to the chief of strategy. Come on.
No, well, I'm just saying the difficulty of asking Megan Tyler this as opposed to the mayor.
No, Chair, please. I'm talking about the structure. What happens when a minister says, I'm withdrawing this, as opposed to pausing it? So she goes back to Kāinga Ora and says, pause and withdraw. You know, I'm trying to get to the crux of, if you say withdraw, the whole, all the work that's gone into that so far has to be restarted, or you can't start at that point, you have to pull the whole lot. Withdraw is to take everything away. And I'm just trying to understand, if we said pause, it would be an easier thing for the minister to respond to positively as opposed to withdraw. That's what I'm trying to get to. And I thought you might know.
I understand. So my reading of that is to, if you withdraw the letter, the whole letter would be withdrawn. So it would be as if it never existed. And so clearly all work on the SDP process would stop. If the word was paused, the letter would still be there. However, all the work would still stop. So I think ultimately the work would still stop until something else happens, but the withdrawal would be like the letter never existed.
Okay, got that. Thank you. And can you just outline what the implications are of suspending work on Plan Change 78 in this corridor? What are the implications, particularly at the back end of the PC 78 process? And also, what are the implications for suspending our relationship in the other areas?
So the main, I think, implication of suspending work on the variation at the moment would be ultimately with Plan Change 78, we have a deadline now of March 2025 to complete that. Remember we got that year's extension because of the weather events earlier in the year. So if we stopped work now, it would mean that if it started again, I don't know, in some months' time or a year's time, I kind of insert time, we're unlikely to be, it will be very hard, possibly impossible, depending on how long it would take to still meet that March 2025 timeframe. So that's the main implication of stopping it now, or sorry, pausing or suspending work now, because we still don't have clarity of station locations and mode. We're not in the position we thought we would be anyway to, start that notification process. So in a way, we're unable to kind of do the work that we thought we would, regardless.
Okay, I guess what I'm probably, Mayor, I'm on board with you here, but it's just about sort of some of the words. I'm probably asking you to just consider using the word pause rather than withdraw. And I think in terms of the other, bringing in collaboration with the sponsors, yes, But I think, and Member Ashby, we had a discussion before about this. Member Ashby might address this, but there's an absence of including mana whenua in this at the moment. Not on your part, Mayor, by the Crown. There's no appearance that there's a reaching out to mana whenua, and there's an opportunity in these motions to make sure that takes place. But I might leave that with Member Ashby. But that's my initial feedback. I do have some concerns about the implications. We do need to understand the implications on PC 78 and other areas of work where we need to continue to collaborate.
I think we need to consider the implications of this not being withdrawn. If we're not careful, it will be seen. If we're not firm about this, that particular minister will take this as some form of victory, whatever it is. The implications of this running through its length is that we become an emasculated planning authority without the control over our whole CBD area. I mean, it's just a stealth bomb. So, any further questions?
Yes, there are questions, and just careful of language again, Mayor. I think relating things to bombing has happened a number of times around here, and I just don't think that's comparable. But Councillor Bartley.
Thank you. My question is there another way? Because it's only an assessment. Kāinga order, if this proceeds or when it proceeds, Kāinga order is already on the back foot because it's going to get a lot of public backlash. And we've seen that in the media with what happened in Huntington Park. So this whole thing here is making me really uncomfortable because it's messying the lines and it's almost buying into the stigma out there. So even though it's about the how, you know, they didn't contact you properly and that relationship, I think it's going to get messied with the what. And so I don't want to see us lose an opportunity for more housing. It's a perfect opportunity along the rail line. I don't want to lose the rail because we definitely need better public transport. You know, I have people contact me every day that are living in their cars. So you're not going to get me saying something against getting more housing out there for our communities. So I feel like we're losing sight of that because we're busy over here worrying that, you know, the relationship isn't going as well as it should be. So figure that out, but I don't think you need to do it this way because this is just too much of a this. Meantime, people still living in their cars in Auckland. Wow, real equitable city there. So yeah, that's my contribution. Also, you can't really say you had a unanimous vote before because I wasn't here for that. I went to a funeral. And I've got to go soon, so.
It was unanimous amongst the people who were able to vote, so it was, but I don't want to argue over that.
Yeah.
But we're saying is that we want to be treated not just in this, but as a partner. That's what the super city was set up at. So it's rescuing that as well as everything else. The more and more stuff is being done to us, not with us. And we have a Minister of Auckland who popped up, and the former Minister of Auckland was acting as a minister with Auckland. But this looks like the next thing will be a minister to Auckland, which is quite different. And so I think this is a very, very important thing. We didn't set this. We didn't fire the first gun here. And at the top of my letter, it says that we are looking forward to developing and continuing and working in partnership. But we've had a number of supposed partnerships that haven't been partnership. The Waitemata harbour crossing presentation went on about partnership. They'd been going for months before they even showed us what they were talking about. We have to be treated as a partner, which is what we were set up to do. So, you got something to say?
Councillor Henderson.
Thank you. Can I just check, are we still on questions or?
Apologies, yes.
Okay.
The focus was questions, but I know Councillor Bartley has to go, so I think she was trying to get a thought and feeling across as well. But
Yeah, no,
yeah,
I get that. We've got a lot of people here that I think need to go pretty soon. So I'm just, yeah, me for 3. Yeah. So anyway, I'll spit it out quickly. E2, what is that and what are the implications?
you say D2?
E2, what is that saying to us? What are the implications if we vote that through?
Well, the implication is that at the moment we'd be wasting a whole lot of money doing that if it's going to be taken away from us. You know, if they're to proceed with this, it's just pointless. And the other part about it is that this came at a time when we were all working towards the ALR doing a notification of the route. Now they've decided not to go ahead with that. So we don't even know what the actual route is, or even the mode. So that it makes no sense to proceed with that anyhow. But to do that in the light that we could well lose the entire planning thing. And I think we want to say, this is all part of saying how seriously we're taking this, an instruction for another group to be asked by a minister to take over such an important part of the thing without even telling us. It's just unacceptable behaviour, and I think it needs a very strong response. I'd be interested to hear from. I think are we going beyond questions and the debate, Your Honour?
So we're still in questions, and we've got 3 questions, and then Councillor Simpson, I think, just wants to speak.
Okay, I've got debate as well.
Councillor Watson online. Question?
Actually, Mr. Chair, I'll have my say then. I won't duplicate things. I'll wait to the debate.
Kia ora, thank you, Councillor. Oh, and I think that's everyone on the list. Councillor Fletcher, you have a question. Oh, just your microphone, please, Councillor. Thank you.
Was there any, and this is to John Duguid or to Megan Tyler, has there ever been a situation, because not all of us have been privy to the discussions, in any of this that foreshadowed this action?
Through the chair, no. And I recall when it was brought, to this committee last week or raised last month, that I answered that question the same way. Having said that, there has always been an understanding that as the Urban Regeneration Authority, there were these powers out there. But no, there was nothing from a staff perspective would have suggested that this was coming.
So without going through word by word the purposes of the UDA and what it provides for and the general powers around acquisition, why would it be sinister for the Auckland Council if this was to be given effect without the collaboration and cooperation of Auckland Council? So, to the public of Auckland out there who probably don't like council at the best of times, why should they be fearful of this?
And possibly why should the minister refuse to meet the Auckland light rail sponsors to discuss it?
So, I'll go into perhaps some of that within my debate. I've also got a very specific question, and that's around conflict. As it runs through the ward that I represent, am I conflicted in any way with this particular matter?
A few people around the room don't want to hear an answer to that.
Oh, look, through the chair, the fact is that this committee deals with development proposals as a regulator across the whole region. So even today, we were talking about Wellsford, for example, which I know is not your area, but it's Councillor Sayers, for example. So no, you have no direct conflict or inability to discuss or take a view on this. Though any conflict, it could be, say, financial conflict or something like that, would be if you owned property that was specifically earmarked for development, which of course we're nowhere near that. So in terms
Don't know
of
what the route
this
is,
kind
which
of
is kind of a problem.
this kind of process, no, you're not conflicted. You are acting in
Potentially, I could
your.
be part of the route.
You could well be, yes, but at this stage, we're not talking at that level of detail. Yeah.
I see. So also, as a creature of statute for us as an Auckland Council, what other resources do we have to challenge this? And are we, are there other things that we can leverage off as a creature of statute? Or do we just sit back and get whipped?
The process that's set out in the Urban Development Act to do this investigation specifically asks or requires KO to partner, and one of the partners is council, because council is the regulatory authority in any region. So that's a that's a process.
But on the hierarchy.
Yes, but on the hierarchy, ultimately, if the investigation, if the work goes through, and the minister decides that yes, this should be a specified development proposal or area, then KO's powers kick in, and they will effectively trump councils, depending on how many of those powers they choose to use. They don't have to use them all. They could leave it with council. They could take them over. So it's a kind of a next step. I'm not aware of any other legislative powers that we have to somehow kind of stop that. As there's their powers or that decision would effectively trump ours should that occur.
What precedents have there been for something as significant as this in New Zealand's history? I could find none, and I did some research on the scale of this.
Yeah, I don't know if
the NPSUD.
Yeah, look, I can't think of any, Councillor Fletcher, but yeah.
Thank you. So this is pretty unprecedented. Thank you.
Kia ora. I just have a question maybe for the Mayor. The wording on E2, suspend or work indefinitely on the intensification variation to plan change 78. Is there a reason why indefinitely is in there, and why it couldn't say what the other, I think you have a different way of saying.
I think it goes in conjunction with the words above saying pending reconsideration of the direction. In other words, if the direction is reconsidered, then we won't do those things. So it's just a holder and pending reconsideration. And it's not just that. I think that, to say that they won't meet us is pretty. It's a punch in the nose, really, for the sponsors, who myself, Councillor Darby, and the iwi representatives have put in a lot of time over this, and have worked in a very collaborative way. And the Minister of Transport was behaving in a very partnership role over this. There's no question about that. But suddenly it's not. Then I don't think the new Minister of Transport's quite over this, and he certainly wasn't involved in this letter either, or informed.
Thank you. I think we'll move to speaking. Is there no other questions? Councillor Philippine. Oh, sorry. Apologies. Councillor Philippine.
Thank you, Chair. I've heard so many questions on what the impacts will happen as a result of E. And this is to the Mayor. Why can't we delete E and inform the Minister and reword G? I understand and know what you want to do with A, B, C, and D. But with all the questions around the implications, why can't we at least, well, not at least, but advise the minister that we as in the mayor or Auckland Council will be seeking legal advice around what you want and what you currently have in E. I want to know what the implications from legal around I2 and 3, 1, 2 and 3. I want to have a look at those first before I make a decision. So what we do is, so that's the question, what we do is we have 2 bites at the cherry then. We advise the minister that, hey, A, B, C, D and E and G, by the way, we will be seeking legal advice around pulling out of, or whatever you've written up there, and then wait for the response. If the response comes back, we then have legal advice to say, here are your implications if you want to do 1, 2 and 3. That's my part out to you, Mayor.
Okay, well, I'll let Max think about this, because it's possible we could put the director pending reconsideration of the direction council would seek advice on not cooperating, on suspending and on suspending its participation. Well, that's fair enough. I think that's probably, we'd seek advice to do on doing that, which means we're serious about it. We're going to seek legal advice to do those things, so that might solve your problem.
And I think, Your Worship, the other question I have is around mana whenua. Have we, as in yourself or council, whether it be yourself and Councillor Darby, spoken with our partners in this in regards to what we're looking at doing? Because, I mean, I'll be interested to hear what they would want to say as well. But for me, I support A through to D, Mayor. I really do, and getting that legal advice to find out what the implications are.
Well, the interesting thing is that the minister didn't bother writing to them. Minister didn't write to me as a sponsor, or Chris Darby as a sponsor, or Narumi Blair as a sponsor, or David Taipari as a sponsor. They wrote to the chairperson of Kāinga Ora, and he rang me and he sent me the copy of the letter. So it's been done very, very poorly. So I, on behalf of this council and my fellow sponsor here, wrote back. I believe that the sponsors, the tangata whenua sponsors, we all got our stuff from the chair of Kāinga Ora, and I'm not sure if he spoke to them. I know that David Taupari is aware in the background, and he's not happy about this. I don't imagine anybody, and I think if the public of Auckland discovered that, particularly the people living in the city, that they could well find that they're not dealing with us, but they're dealing with an urban housing government department for the shaping of the city, I'd say this will mushroom a hell of a lot bigger than this. So this is odd, and doing a firm response here, we're not actually using up our real power, which is ruffling the feathers of all our citizens. So we're not doing that yet. We're giving this person, this minister, the opportunity to extricate herself from a position that she may not have understood she's got into.
So I'll reserve my right to speak along with the others in regards to E especially.
Okay, righto. Well, I'm hoping that we'll get the whole thing about the size of what we're facing here, and the insolence of the minister, in my view, treating us. I'm sure she wouldn't be that roofed on the Horror Whenua Council if there is one.
Kia ora. Kia ora, Mayor. I think, Councillor Williamson, are you for comment or for question?
For comment.
Okay.
I thought we'd moved to comments.
No, we're still in question. Sorry about that. Member Herere, are you comment or question?
Comment.
Okay, thank you. Well, I might take a couple. So I think everyone is now for comments. There are no more questions.
The mayor had a good idea with some words on the E, which satisfied my.
Councillor Darby, this is what so
So
we're
I'm just waiting for it to go up.
Yep, no, I said I'm going to take a couple-minute break so we can get the
okay.
words are being done behind. So we've moved out of questions and we're just going to go and talk about whether those changes can be put up.
You're going to lose a quorum, so can we just, while they're still mucking around, I just want to talk about the concept.
Right, well, while the mayor is hopefully changing slightly the resolutions, Deputy Mayor.
Oh, look, thanks, Chair. Look, when the Mayor showed me this paper, I got what he was trying to do. So I'm going to try and make a positive sort of a way about this. I mean, ultimately, we have a minister who, if I was being very, very generous, I'd say maybe that she doesn't understand how some of the background here, because what is happening is a huge amount of land between the city and all the way along 24-kilometre route is potentially being taken away from us and being overridden by a decision from the central government. So we already had SDPs that were agreed to be done in partnership, and that partnership was with central government, with local government, with mana whenua and other organisations. We all signed up to that, you know, we had a minister that did that really well. And I just think what's happened here is hopefully that someone just hasn't given this minister a really good advice. So I fervently do believe we need to push back. We can't have that role taken away from us. But what the letter will do, I think, is open up a conversation and just say, if I was the author of the letter, I would say, write the letter, ring the office, get the minister online or in front of the mayor and have a conversation, because that's what's happened. This is a communication breakdown, really. And I think it owes to all of us to sort of say, back the truck up, Minister, can we just have a conversation about this? It may still happen as the Minister wants, you know? I just don't think that it may. But what we're having to do is to be part of that conversation and for the Minister to recognise that the special development projects are collective, they're partnerships, they're joint understandings, and we need to make sure that that happens. So I was happy to second this holistically for that view, and I think you should too as governors of this city. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and although I would like to continue the debate, I cannot allow it to happen when there's 5 people talking behind me, so we're just going to pause for a minute. What?
Whilst we've still got everybody here, I don't think it makes it much weaker to say that the council will seek advice on its intention to 1, 2, 3. At least that. I mean, this needs to be firm letter. The letter I got was pretty firm. It's saying I'm just going to bowl you, and so I think we've got to do that. So, is it coming up somewhere or other?
Yeah. Should have said that.
It's about the pop-up. It's hardly changed, but it does mean that we will seek advice on our intention to, not cover over, which we'll be doing that well.
So I think we can understand the additions. So, Councillor Ferry, you're next. Do you feel comfortable speaking? Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Member Henare, do you want to speak, or do you want to wait for the final resolution to be put up?
No, I'll have a yarn.
Yeah, off you go.
Look, I totally support the mayor on his feeling I know that governments do things for whatever reason. And I would even hazard a guess that governments before this one have done pretty much the same thing. But that doesn't mean that it's right, especially when you have iwi, when you have the council, when you have sponsors, when you have the government supposedly working together. I don't think that it's weak in saying to them, or I don't think it's harsh in saying to the government, no, you don't do this. We were of the understanding that blah, 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 blah. And it was supported by the sponsors, by iwi, by a whole lot of people, including the former minister. And so I think the mayor is right to put the bullet across the bow of the ship and say to him that if that is your wish, then it is our wish to seek some comment from our lawyers about that, or whatever, or however. So I know I haven't even seen what His Worship the Mayor is wanting to put in, but I'm pretty sure that I and the IMSB will lend our support to the Mayor. I think it's an appalling state of affairs, to be honest, especially given the history of it. Kia ora.
Kia ora, thank you, Member Henare. Deputy Chair, Councillor Dalton. Councillor Dalton, we're ready to speak at this time? Sorry, with the
No, that's right.
The slight amendments, people are probably changing the way they're going to speak.
Just having a look at them, thank you. Look, I support the letter going. I support A, B, C and D. I really have a bit of a struggle with E. A is saying we want to be collaborative, we want to work together, and then we're saying, but we're not going to cooperate. And those three things there, if the minister doesn't reconsider. So I'm thinking about the seek advice on it, but it's either way it's a threat, right? It doesn't matter whether you're seeking advice or saying you're going to do it. Then it's just to make a point, and it's to try and win an argument. I think that can all be achieved in A, B, C, and D. I was just going to look at G. Oh, yeah, okay. So there you have my support for a letter, but not all of the letter, and I'll vote accordingly. Thank you.
Kia ora, Deputy Chair. Councillor Henderson.
Yeah, thanks. A lot of this is repeating what I talked about in the previous debate, which was, earlier on in this process, that, as I repeatedly say around here, I disagree with nearly everything that council ever puts forward in terms of housing. I think we let down our future generations, and I've talked about this a bunch of times. But there is still a place for local democracy, and there's still, I think, a response that we need to give when we do have this sprung on us, without a lot of notice. And so therefore I will be going along with most of this, not all of this. Not particularly comfortable about E or F, but if we change it to advice rather than actually doing it, I think it might be something that I could support, but I'm going to listen to the debate very carefully. G is far too far for me, far too far. I mean, looking at the potential of pulling out of PC 78 is, as I've said in this debate 100 times, this is the sort of stuff that needs to continue. We need to reaffirm to the city that we're really serious about housing. We're serious about housing, particularly in transport corridors, and we need to be sending positive signals all the time that we back our communities that are homeless, that are in need of housing, young people, young families that are desperate out there still. We're short of 40,000 homes, so we've got to be thinking about the messages that we're sending to Aucklanders through this stuff, right? And so the message that I want to send to Aucklanders is that I have never and will never give up on your right to housing. And we have a huge planning framework and a responsibility here that we should be doing to enable that housing. And so, gee, is far too far. I think that has really troubling implications. Thank you, Chair.
Kia ora, Councillor. Thank you. Councillor Ferry.
Thanks. I think Councillor Henderson said a lot of sentiments that I agree with. I have asked that this be put in parts so that we don't have to, we can vote on each portion of it separately, and I understand the Chair's accepted that proposal. So I, at this point, intend to still vote against E. I think Councillor Dalton made a very good point about we're seeking advice on it. You know, that for me is a step too far. And I also don't think I'll be supporting F or G. And I want to talk a little bit about why that is, because I completely understand and sympathise with the fact that they should have discussed this with us. There should have been a partnership approach before they talked to Kāinga Ora and pressed the button on them looking at whether or not Kāinga Ora might pick up the planning. This is the thing, is that, you know, we've already said to them, you know, we wish you hadn't done that. They've said to us, well, tough, we did. And now we're just sort of in this tit for tat situation that I don't think actually is helpful for developing our city or developing redeveloping a partnership type relationship with government on these issues. So I guess that's the thing, is we can sort of keep firing shots at each other, or one of us needs to sort of put down the gun and put out the hand and move forward. And I would like us to do that. That said, I would also like to point out, and I put this in my question, Kāinga Ora is the National Urban Development Authority. And I think that there is quite widespread confusion about the role of Kāinga Ora in our community. I think a lot of people think of Kāinga Ora as the old Housing NZ that basically builds and runs state housing. And actually they have a much broader remit now. I've dealt with that a lot in my area, particularly in my time on the local board. With the Roskill development, 5 neighbourhoods. I've said it before, I live in one of those neighbourhoods. They are literally redeveloping across the road from my house. And their role is much broader than I think a lot of our community think. And I do really reject the idea that Kāinga Ora tenants are less desirable for our communities. I absolutely reject the idea that Kāinga Ora housing is substandard or is going to result in ghettos. And I think that some people are unfortunately filling the fare cup on this for our communities. They're waving around KO to scare people. And actually, my experience with KO, with planning, master planning, with development delivery that they've done in my area, has actually been pretty good. It's been better than private developers. And they've actually taken on board where they've stuffed things up and improved their processes. So I guess I don't see the idea that KO might take a lead on this as a threat in and of itself. I think the way they've gone about it does suck, and that's why I voted for the motion last time. But I can't support something that is just shooting back at central government when actually we need to work together. I'd also like to point out that if KO does pick this up and it does become an SDP, I think is the right acronym, then actually that's going to help us financially. They're going to pay for the planning stuff. You know, we would absolutely still have a role. We would still have a statutory role. So I am not scared of that. I'm not saying I support us absolutely doing that or going into that, but I don't mind it being looked at. And I think this goes way too far. And doesn't reach out the hand of partnership. Instead, it just fires back another shot, and that's not helpful. Thank you.
Kia ora. Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Fletcher.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And firstly, can I thank colleagues for facilitating a process that we could write back to the Minister to say, please don't do this. The fact that the Minister has written back in the way that she has, for me, shows no respect for the mana of this council. It is disrespectful, it's arrogant, and it's an assault on our democracy. I'm not of the view that somehow that this is because we don't like KO. I think what we need to be thinking about is if this is followed through, when you look at the provisions that actually then sit there, they have the ability to override, add to suspend provisions in regional district plans or policy statements, act as the territorial consenting and requiring authority to take over monitoring or enforcement functions for subdivisions, create, reconfigure and reclassify reserves. You know, it's potential to muck up our parks. Build, change, move infrastructure, roads, water supply, wastewater and drainage, set and collect targeted rates, certain charges and required development contributions and betterment payments. They have general land acquisition powers. I could go on. I could read you all of this. That is why I'm really uncomfortable with it. I do not care who it is, whether it's a national government, a Labour government, an ACT government, Māori Party. It wouldn't matter. It is just so disrespectful of this council, and as such, we don't have too much going for us and to be able to fight back on this. But I think the Mayor has actually tried to set a piece of correspondence that is fair. I would have had him go further, but he moderated it because ultimately we need local government and central government to be working effectively. Just as you need a strong government, you need a strong opposition, you need a strong Auckland. And this is not going to help the people of Auckland in the way that we move forward. I've got a lot else I would have liked to have said, but I'm mindful of the time restraints, but I can think of no other time, and there have been some pretty Tauhanare alluded to times when governments have acted perhaps in a way that is really disrespectful, but this just goes beyond anything I ever anticipated. And I think the level of almost malice in the response and disregard for what were well-crafted, quite reasonable requests for a good working relationship mean that we've got to use the tools that we've got in our toolbox. And I think that is what the Mayor is putting forward. So I hope we can work together in terms of supporting this. I think it's pleasing that the Chair is going to allow you to vote for it on sections, but I hope that this can be passed and that the Minister will have a flavour of the fact that we are not going to just capitulate, and maybe we can all save face and move on and get going with the things we need to do, because there are huge challenges ahead of us in Auckland, and it's ridiculous that we're wasting time in this type of debate. So thank you, Mr. Mayor, for following through on this, and thank you to the Chair, and I hope that this can be supported this evening.
Kia ora, Councillor. Councillor Watson online.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. When the Super City was set up, the view was expressed by some parliamentarians actually that this was an unwise thing to do, because in creating this Super City, they were unleash this potential rival to the government itself. I think the tenor of some of the debate here tonight would seem to indicate that that was a fear that certainly hasn't become realised. It wouldn't be so bad if this latest imposition was the first, or had come out of the blue, or was a consequence of some sort of hurried, ill-considered initiative. But it's not. It's just been the latest in a long line of impositions on Auckland, where most unfortunately the Auckland Council powers, its influence, its very unitary plan, which had been such a source of pride back in 2016, that this massive planning regime had been put together and with relative speed and with such consequences for the intensification of the region, and as we were told back then and as we are told now, to do with the affordability of housing. Well, certainly it intensified. A lot of houses got built, but certainly didn't do anything about intensification in terms of affordability for the people long since shut out of the housing market. So I actually thought the wording used by the mayor, and particularly the revisions, such as, seeking advice on the council's intention, were rather mild, to say the least, given that backdrop. I guess, at its most basic, you can have all the hyperbole and the kind of red herrings of people not supporting Kāinga Ora, or people being against affordable housing, or leaving people staying in cars, all that usual stuff. You can chuck that in, but really at its most basic, this letter shows in a pretty limited and mild form whether there's any will to make a stand on behalf of Auckland, particularly after the last 2 or 3 years. So I'd commend the mayor for putting this letter together. I'll be supporting every single clause in it. In many respects, it doesn't go far enough as far as I'm concerned, but it's at least a belated attempt to show some resistance to these planning impositions on behalf of the Auckland, and as such deserves support, not to be watered down or not to be opposed. But of course, as always, that'll be up to individual members to decide which way they go in that. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Kia ora, thank you, Councillor. Councillor Baker.
Thank you. I don't need to tell you how I feel, but look, I just think that I agree with the mayor, and I agree with what we're trying to do here. I just wonder whether we're just, the wording's still not quite right, and I wasn't going to join the scrum out the back. Sorry, Stu. But I think there's, in terms of I'm wondering why we're not using reaffirm, and so because the committee is reaffirming our commitment. I think in B, we should be expressing notings. Just, I mean, it's a naff word that we use all the time in our reports. I think we need to be expressing our profound disappointment. And then nowhere do I see any request or demand for a meeting. And so we've heard that the minister is refusing to meet with us. So where is the request? And I think if that comes from the governing body, that we are seeking with some urgency a meeting with the mayor, with the minister. And just in terms of E, I'm uncomfortable-ish. I know what we're trying to do, but I'd prefer to see us say something along the lines of that we are seeking, we are staffed to investigate the impacts of the implications of 1, 2, and 3, and so then I'm happy. I mean, I just not comfortable with that up there. I know exactly what we're trying to do, but I just think that it still needs some wordsmithing, because I don't think it's sort of all over the place a little bit. But that's just me. I know what you're trying to do, and I agree.
Thank you, Councillor Baker. Member Ashby.
Kia ora, I'll try to keep mine quick. Look, for me, totally support the sentiment of the mayor and what he's trying to achieve here. I think, to the best of my knowledge, I know the IMSB haven't, and to the best of my knowledge, neither have any of the so-called mana whenua partners that are referred to in the minister's letter, given any heads up of this direction. Seems to me an overreach, and I think there was good work being done in partnership with council and mana whenua, and I have very little faith, given KO's track record of them having a very good relationship with Auckland's iwi in this space. So I think that I totally support the mayor in the sentiment and in firing something back to the minister. The only
The only, I suppose, concern that I have is probably only around item G, and that's, I would probably echo Summer Councillor Henderson's sentiment around that. It's just not wanting to throw the baby out with the bathwater, as it were. So that's probably the only one that I'm a little concerned about, but otherwise totally support the intent here. Kia ora.
Kia ora, thank you, Member Ashby. Councillor Filipino.
Thank you, Chair. I'm comfortable with the recommendations. The reason I'm comfortable with the recommendations is because this is not about kāinga ora. It's not about the work that they're going to do across Tāmaki and Makaurau. I agree with the sentiment about what we, as a governing body, and the mayor did in regards to that first letter that was sent to the minister. The reason I asked for seek advice on the council's intention is exactly the reason why Councillor Baker mentioned it, and that is to see what the implications will be if we do 1, 2, and 3. Even during our questioning here, I still didn't get a clear message as to what the implications are. I'm waiting for that advice. I've asked and sought advice from our staff, and I've been told that the advice that is going to come our way is going to be legal advice. I also was advised that none of 1, 2, or 3 is going to be put in place or implemented until after we get that legal advice. And that just tables it for the minister that this is what we're thinking as a result of the letter we received. I support kāinga ora. I mean, we've got our own Mangere KO kāinga ora place at Mangere Town Centre. And I mean, we've seen all the housing there. That's why this, for me, is not about the work that they're doing. I want to find out what the legal advice and ramifications will be if we end up doing 1, 2, and 3 in E and also with G. That's what I want to find out. So we've still got another decision to make when the legal advice comes back to us. But at the moment, I will be supporting these recommendations. Kia ora.
Kia ora. Councillor Williamson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Look, I don't want to talk about the details of Kaingaroa or the housing they're building or any of the specifics, but this to me comes down to 2 big headings. It comes down to good faith and it comes down to balance of power. Now, the original direction to Mark Goshi as chair of Kaingaroa without coming through the council, in my view, is such a breach of good faith between partners in an organisation, be it in building a big project or being in business with others. A good faith clause means that you all keep each other informed of your decisions and you don't act unilaterally. So the good faith was broken. The second part of it is that balance of power. I can tell you, having been in the cabinet room for many, many years, there is often a case with ministers saying, let's try these guys out. Let's just see if they're prepared to go to the wall or not. Now, it isn't us that took the action, and indeed, it was us that tried to defuse it by writing to the minister and saying, we would like you to withdraw that and so on. This particular set of directions doesn't even close it off. It's not the gun at somebody's head I heard before, and we're going to go in and shoot as well. This says, if you are not prepared to withdraw, then these are the actions we would take. And I'd ask people around the table to think about it. If you're in a good faith relationship with a partner and they do this, could you ever contemplate staying in that relationship unless they are prepared to withdraw it? Because I just don't think you could. You wouldn't be able to ever rely on that partner in the future to act in good faith if they made a mistake at the beginning and you pointed that out, and then they hold firm and say, no way, then you clearly are getting people who are acting deliberately in bad faith. The balance of power they think lies with them. I'm disappointed in the mayor putting this red conditioning on E. I just think we should have stayed firm with it because we're offering them earlier in, I can't see it on your screen now, but I saw it earlier, if you do withdraw it, then we're all okay and we can carry on. And so therefore there's no need for the minister to say, oh, you're withdrawing. We would be withdrawing if they won't continue to act in good faith and be a partner to us. And I certainly will be supporting the intention of this. I just prefer we didn't have to weaken it with that red bit.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Darby.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor, for the changes there that accommodate my concerns in the E. And Councillor Philippina, thank you for recommending that. I'll let go of the semantics on pause versus withdraw. But look, the crux of this is the Mayor and I actually received not even a letter telling us that this was going to proceed from the Minister. It was an email addressed to the Mayor and I as sponsors, not to the 3 other non-Crown sponsors. They didn't get it, the Mana Whenua sponsors. And I look back and I wonder why I actually got that email. And the email was from the Chief Executive of the Ministry of Housing and Urban Development. And the email didn't actually introduce kia ora Mayor, kia ora Councillor. It was just kia ora korua. It wasn't personal in any way whatsoever. You know, there was not, it should have been at bare minimum a rangatira to rangatira conversation between the Minister for Housing and Urban Development and the Mayor, the bare minimum. Even if it was advising, it should have been Minister to Mayor. It wasn't even that. But of course, what we would like is ideally, we should have received a letter from the Minister to the Mayor saying, I am considering this process. I am considering this process and I would like to have a discussion with you and your officials about this process. That would have been an ideal beginning point, but we didn't get that. We got the email from the Chief Executive. So this is not indicative of how other ministers have related to us. Former Minister of Transport is complete other end of the scale, very inclusive, embracing, and has been on the Auckland Light Rail project. So this should not reflect on government. It's just a particular office and maybe the advice that a minister has received. So I look forward to a reset.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Turner.
Thank you. I'll be quick. I've listened to everybody and it's very informative and stuff that I don't know and do now know. I'm sitting here just thinking to myself, how do I best represent the people who put me here? And not forgetting that I represent people in West Auckland who don't have homes, but I also represent people who rent them and own them. And everybody is saying to me, the roads are blocked, the ambulances can't get down. I took a video the other day and put it up of sewage overflow, sizable sewage overflow. And all this, the people all say to me, you know, why is this happening? And they all still talk about the unitary plan. They think that's still active, which it is. But, you know, I stand there in front of them not knowing how to answer them because I'm starting to learn all the things I learn here. So I've listened to a few words said here, implications. The implications to the people out there from all this infill housing and all this sort of stuff is negative. It's all over the place for the people too. There's no rhyme or reason to it. Because we're having rules put upon us which aren't being made by us, that aren't being made by people with skin in the game in our city. So I think that for those reasons, the people that have put me here would want me to support the Mayor 100%, because I think it sends that message you're all talking about, that we must be listened to. Thank you.
Kia ora, Councillor. Last speaker, Councillor Walker.
I'll be very brief. I support the Mayor's letter. I support the earlier wording that's without the red, and the rationale for that is twofold. We have a project that's unfolded and unfunded. We have a route that's undecided, and we have intensification associated with it that is unnecessary, as we know. If ever there was a time for us to push back, that time is now. What I would have liked to see is actually a campaign to make Aucklanders much more aware of what's going on, because I'm certain that if that were the case, we would be in an even stronger position, because I could not see that anybody would agree with the way that the government is going. And that's not associated with any particular party. It wouldn't matter who was in the government. This is entirely inappropriate. So I will certainly support the modified wording, but I would have preferred the earlier wording. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. And if I just speak briefly, I support A, B, C and D. I'm extremely disappointed. I don't understand why the Minister would think this was a good idea to do. I don't think this is partnership, and it's just, caused a lot of upset, confusion, questions around this table. The Mayor feels that the relationship previously with Minister Wood and others was going quite well and was helping the city understand this. I support E1. I do have reservations on E2 and 3 and G, because I feel personally they are not directly related to our issue with the relationship and the letter. I have concerns about what E3 leads to, because of the relationship there is actually a $1.9 billion relationship, and we're only putting a couple $100 million into that, and it's about a 1.5 billion from the government. So I just have concerns about E3 and also G, because of the uncertainty that adds to what is going on, and I do not believe that it's directly related. But I do understand the extreme aversion from the Mayor and this council to what has happened, and the response, the opportunity is to pause. I hope the Minister does reconsider. We can reset the relationship and actually do what we're here for, which is support our communities in housing and in transport, and get that done quickly. So I will take this in parts.
Are you going to allow the mover to exercise their right of reply?
Apologies. Mayor, would you like to speak to end the conversation? Thank you, Councillor Fletcher.
Well, thanks for that, Chairperson. I accept from this that everybody is offended by what's happened and wants to do something about it, and we're squabbling over just whether it's strong or weak. I think I've got about in the middle here. I've heard a number of people who'd rather it was as it was, and a number of people who are accepting it is a little bit strong. So that sounds about like it's the Cinderella moment. It's not, no, sorry, the Goldilocks moment, sorry. It's not too hot and not too cold. Sorry, the Goldilocks moment. I mean, it seems to be about right.
Sweet spot.
Everybody's in favour of the whole thing, of the whole intention. Yeah. And some people think it's not quite hot enough, and some people think it's a bit too cold. So I'm figuring that's about right. And so I'll go with whatever you give me. But I really feel I've been involved in governance for many, many years with government departments. I've never had such a rude response from a minister ever. Never. And I've been in some squabbles over health boards, some quite difficult positions with power supply. And this was just uncalled for, out of the blue. We weren't having a squabble. We were getting along quite nicely with the Minister of Transport at the time as the lead agent in this thing. And I wish he'd sold his bloody shares, actually. So, let's go for the vote. But remember what I'm trying to do, and thank you for your support, one way or another. And we'll work our way through this. It seems as though the first four are going to be a yes. It's just dependent on the numbers for the E, F and G, if that's, I think I've got that right, Chairperson, but I'll let you hand over now and thank you for the opportunity to speak
A
to this.
division.
Got it. Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, Councillor Fletcher, are you wanting a division on all clauses? That
I wondered whether you were going to take it clause by clause on those that were, there was a very clear perhaps difference. I'll be guided by you, but I would like it recorded because this is such an important moment.
Thank you. Now, we have asked for division clause by clause. I just want to check that would A to D be okay, or would you? Okay, so we will take A to D, and maybe this is the part we just do on voices. Is that fine, Councillor Fletcher? A to D, all those in favour?
Aye.
Aye.
Are there anyone who would like?
Aye.
Sorry.
Aye.
Thank you. There's a delay. So would anyone like their vote recorded against A to D? Cool. We can say that would be carried unanimously. Now E, I think there is a division wanted on this, or I am happy to note, but if Councillor Fletcher, you're calling an official division here. Okay. How about if
you could have a division on E, F and G.
Yeah, I think if we go for E, we'll vote, and if we have note opposition, and we'll make sure that is recorded in the minutes, if that's okay with everyone, because the process to do that is quite long. So all those in favour of, I'll take them separately, all those in favour on E1?
Aye.
Yep.
Aye.
Aye.
Would anyone like their vote recorded against E1?
Yes, please.
Yeah, yes, please. So if we would just go Councillor Leone, Councillor Ferry, Councillor Henderson, Councillor Dalton. Is there anyone else? E1? Thank you. The opposition, or sorry, those who support E2, all those in favour?
Aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposition?
Aye.
Sorry. Thank you. Are there any people that oppose E2? Right, so I see the same four, and I'll add myself to that list. Thank you. Is there anyone online opposed to E2? Don't think so. Right, all those in favour of E3?
Aye.
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 Are there councillors and members opposed to E3? So the same, and I'm on that one too. Thank you, Sandra. Is there anyone online that was opposed to E3? Thank you. All those in favour of F?
Aye.
Is there...
Aye.
Aye.
It's not super fast broadband with that delay. Is there anyone opposed to F? Same. Oh, there's Councillor Philippina. Yeah. So I'll just check with. All those in favour of G?
Aye.
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 Are there members of the committee opposed to G? 1, 2, 4. So that was, so for transparency, sorry for those online, Councillor Leone, Councillor Ferry, Councillor Henderson, Councillor Dalton, Member Ashby, and myself opposed to G. I'll just make sure that that wasn't a, I assume that's not a 1, 2, 3, no, okay. Thank you very much for that, I think, quite orderly process. Appreciate you all being here for that. We are moving to the closed, whether we have a quorum when we move. We're going to keep to this, as I understand.
I move.
But like Mr. Mayor.
Point of order. Point of order. Point of order. Can I just check? There are people online here that are not saying stuff. What is the actual majority? Can I just make sure that this is actually passed? G?
Kia ora, sorry. Can I just,
May as well check F as well.
we will check on,
We've got 6 online.
we will check on G. Member Henare, were you in favour or opposed?
In favour.
Councillor Watson, were you in favour or opposed?
In favour?
Thank you. Councillor Sayers, were you in favour or opposed? Okay, Councillor Walker, favour or opposed?
In favour?
Councillor Williamson, in favour or opposed?
In favour.
Councillor Stewart, in favour or opposed?
In favour.
Are those all the names? And so what was that last vote then? Was that 6-6? Sorry, that passed. Sorry, apologies. I'm talking 6 online and 6 opposed, but there was actually far more in the room. Apologies.
And we're wishing the mayor well with his letter and his delivery.
Thank you. And we will defer, as far as I understand, Megan, we're deferring the confidential item to a committee soon. Thank you all for the hall. Thank you especially to the staff who have put up with us all day. We didn't need to go into, we will do this. We're delaying the last item.
Bye-bye. Ka kite, thank you.